Je m'appelle Steve Staples. I'm the president of the Rideau Institute. We're an independent research, advocacy, and consulting group based here in Ottawa, working quite a bit in defense and foreign policy. And we're delighted to see that the debate on the F-35 has risen to such a high level of interest now, us having released our first report back in October of 2010 on the F-35. Seems like a long time ago now, but we're delighted that so much attention is being focused on the F-35 acquisition now. I'm also very pleased today to be joined by Colonel Paul Mailett. Colonel Mailett has had a distinguished 33-year career in the military, managing several major Crown projects valued at over $100 million. He's an aerospace engineer, and he began working on Canada's current fleet of CF-18s upon their delivery to Canada in the 1980s, and progressed to a headquarters appointment, rising to the level of fleet manager for the entire fleet of CF-18s in 1996. Later, he became the Director of Defense Ethics for the Department of National Defense, part of the recommendations of the Somalia Inquiry in the early 90s, before he retired in 2001. I've met Colonel Mailett several times in talking about the issue of the F-35, and I found that he's absolutely committed to improving public policy. He is consulted in Canada and internationally as a governance strengthening and corruption prevention expert, and even stood as a candidate in 2 federal elections for the Green Party. So I'm very happy to bring him today and to introduce him to you. As far as I know, he is the first former Canadian Air Force's personnel to stand before you in this capacity and to take your questions. So I'd like to introduce and welcome Colonel Paul Mailett.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just maybe to elaborate on myself a little bit, I was posted initially to Cold Lake in 1984 and involved in the receipt of the CF-18s. So really followed the project all the way through up to headquarters positions in engineering. Following that, I also had a quick tour as a Chief of Staff in Fighter Group, so I'm familiar with the operational side of this aircraft also. So with regards to the CF-18, I guess the biggest thing the message that I would have is an issue of risk. As an aerospace engineer and former fleet manager, when I see the term development in every contract or in any contract, especially ones that I know the government is facing huge problems, massive headaches. Development in this business is totally uncertain. Basically, cost, performance, and schedule goals are high risk, and in many cases, I would say they will not happen as you predict them today. 25 billion, we've heard in the press. I would say 25 billion if we're very lucky. With regards to operations and maintenance. You're looking at refueling, infrastructure costs, and many other costs associated with this. You're looking at a block upgrade procurement process, where the initial aircraft are not going to be necessarily operationally capable until you get to the block 5, 6 area, which is probably going to be around 2020. So we're still looking at another almost 10 years. And if we buy in at block 3 to 5, something like this, we still have massive retrofits that are going to happen. So I don't know. The example that we have probably in Canadian procurement right now that speaks to this is the EH-101, how we've gone from the Cyclone to buy the Cyclone. Delivery was due in 2008. We still don't have operationally capable aircraft. And the issue, of course, is software, the millions of lines of software that are involved in this thing. But even to step back a little bit, I think we have a serious strategic mismatch here. Our strategic direction in terms of defense policy now is Canada First, which talks to sovereignty, talks to continental defense, and global security. Canada First. It's not really industry first, or the fact that these projects, as they go from 10 to 20 years of development, massive involvement with regards to the old boys club, with regards to Air Force generals and politicians, and the way that they get together and sort of structure these things before we have a competition. And it's well known in the military that the well is bottomless when you talk military procurement. There is just no end to expenditures. You can go to space-based systems, AWACS, aircraft carriers, B-2 bombers, and all of these things are clearly unaffordable for Canada, and we have to make choices and trade-offs. So if we are optimizing Canada first, then the question I would ask is, how do you get a single engine, low range, low payload, low maneuverability aircraft that is really being optimized for close air support and battlefield interdiction to operate effectively in the north? I think all of Canadian procurement has to be dual use, and if it's going to be dual use, it should start at the Canada first level. So we were entertaining buying nuclear submarines at the end of the Cold War. Another issue is we have to seriously look that we're not going to be going down this road again. Right now, since 2001, the use of unmanned technology and drones is moving like a tidal wave through military affairs. And I really do think that we shouldn't be behind the curve here, that we should be leading the curve. Also, the issue of procurement process. I think the procurement process in the military works relatively well, except when it gets into projects that are of a strategic nature. They are so large, they are multi-billion-dollar projects, that they are actually going to structure what Canada is going to be able to do in response to conflict. There's the adage that if you give a military guy a tank, well, all his problems are tank targets. You know, so if you get, depending on the equipment that we give, depends on the response and how we're going to participate in conflicts and conflict zones. And I think Canadian values have to have a say in that. So strategic level projects, we need a different project process that's going to handle these sorts of things and that are capable of buying military procurement equipment that's going to last, well, in this case, almost 2 decades before you get any sort of equipment operationally capable on the flight line. So a tailored, accountable process that's going to deal with these massive things. And then we normally buy aircraft on a cost performance schedule and industrial offsets benefit. I think if you look at the F-35, you may wonder how it ever would win in the cost category. There's no aircraft, all the other competitive aircraft, the F-35 would fail absolutely miserably. With regards to performance, there's an optimization of stealth and a battlefield usage. I think that stealth compromises so many things that you need up in the north or you need in a Canada First type policy in terms of range, payload, maneuverability, and air refueling. On the schedule thing, I mean, this project probably started in the 90s, and now they're saying 2020 before you get fully operational aircraft, if you're lucky. So all of the other aircraft that might be competitors in this easily win in this category. And the industrial offsets, well, they would apply. I think for $25 billion, you could fund 400,000 people in secondary school education. There are other ways that you could manage industrial offset. So that's probably something that's very, very important to consider. So with regards to solutions, I think basically we should rationalize military policy with regards to the Air Force. We can contribute to our global alliances and our NORAD alliances in many ways, and they certainly don't have to be the most expensive frontline fighter that you have. We can deal with ground forces, strategic transport, helicopters, other roles. We need a procurement process that's going to cater to projects that are of a strategic nature. We should probably revisit the F-35 selection process and either terminate or suspend this project until there can be a fair, open, and transparent process with regards to a decision. If necessary, we can buy another aircraft, the F-18EF. If necessary, we could also skip a generation. I mean, in the past, the Air Force went from the F-104 generation, the Starfighter, skipped the Vietnam generation of the F-4s and went to the F-18s. The Air Force is full of some very, very smart people who are capable of doing this. I mean, you look at how long we made the F-104 last, and look at how long that we have the Sea Kings flying. I mean, we can keep this flying for an extended period of time. And I think lastly, we really have to seriously face the future with regards to unmanned aircraft and drones. This is either the last or the next to last generation of the fighter pilot, I believe. And the future is in the domain of drones. We reluctantly gave up cavalry and swords and this sort of thing. And I think there's another revolution in military affairs going on here that's making a change. And I don't think we can afford to be behind that curve given the expense of these systems. So basically, we need strategic thinkers and leaders in the military and politicians who are going to take these views. I mean, Canada first does not mean industry first in the military-industrial complexes, the pressures that we face from allies, and these kind of things. We have to assert our values in this domain.